How about now? Now we can hear me. Okay, cool. Always got to remember to turn the mic on. I got to keep it down. Okay, cool. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and I want to welcome everybody in to Gem and Shreds Dojo with me, Master Lee, Christopher Lee Weiss, a.k.a. Master Lee. Hopefully my pedal will behave this evening. Had a little technical difficulties before. I think it just overheats after a while. And believe it or not, I think the foot switch stops working after it gets hot. Just patch 1, though. So as long as I don't need patch 1, we're good, right? I'm going to talk a little bit about some theory tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about kind of breaking up the solos and kind of how we approach, kind of breaking up the notes to make them sound more interesting. But before we get into all that, let's just go ahead and listen to a jam. actually not too bad of a warm-up jam. If you working out a few little kinks. Also, you know, one of the things I kind of did in there is I used the pitch axis a little bit. Kind of shifts up the sound a little bit. Pitch axis, I don't know if it's a real term. I've heard Joe Satriani talk about that, and big Satriani fan, big Vi fan, you know, all of those great guitar players. Actually, there's so many to mention. We'll get to a lot of their different styles and things as we start talking about stuff. But, you know, one of the things that's so cool about that particular jam is that's kind of like based in A minor, right? So what does that mean when we say A minor? A lot of times we think of that's like, well, it could be A natural minor, right? So we were thinking like the key of C major just started on A, right? So it'd be, you know, all natural notes, C, D, E, F, G, and A, B. Or again, starting from A, B, C, D, E, F, G, you know, first 7 letters of the alphabet. Hopefully everybody can remember the alphabet. But one of the things that A minor also means is it could be a mode that A minor is part of from like another key. For example, I use G major a lot over A minor stuff. What's the difference between G major and C major? Well, F is sharp in G major and F is natural, just a regular F in C major. So, but if I play A pentatonic, for example, you know, like if I just play the normal A pentatonic scale, which would be A, C, D, E, G, and A, those notes actually go to both keys. F is not part of either one of those. So I can actually play, in this case, like I can do a little like pentatonic riff. Then I can throw in like whatever F I want to kind of get the flavor that I want at the time, right? So in this case, I'll do, like maybe we'll go, see right there, I hit that F sharp, which kind of gives it a little bit more of the Dorian feel, which is the G major sound, which is, you know, A Dorian as G major. Or I'll actually go down to F, and hit that F in there, as opposed to hitting the F sharp. It's subtle, but it does change the sound up just a little bit. Obviously, the notes that I'm going to be playing over an A chord are going to be the basic notes of an A, which is why the pentatonic scale actually works so well. But let's go ahead and listen to another jam, right? Let's go ahead and do another one here. Let's see what we can do. All right, that's a cool one too. Kind of doing some slower ones here to kind of start off with, mainly because I haven't really warmed up as much as I'd like to today. Been busy with a lot of just things going around here. But again, that's also a good way to kind of warm up. You know, one of the things that I want to talk about real quick is I want to show you guys this. Uh, this is the Boss Micro BR. So you kind of take a good look at this thing. This thing's just a tiny little thing. I would say it's about the size of a cassette tape, but probably no one would know what I was talking about. But it's man, this thing is probably the best practice tool you could ever run into. Um, some of the jams that I'm actually jamming over actually come from this thing. But this thing is just fantastic. It's got like 3 different modes. There are so many things it can do. But as far as like from teaching for years and years and years, one of the things that I really think that players just don't do is they don't spend enough time actually just creating music. It's really important, obviously, that you learn other people's songs, you learn their solos. And, again, there's mileage to be had on a lot of that stuff. I actually, most of the time now, don't really learn other people's solos anymore, man. I learned a ton of them as a kid, but after a while, when you play other people's music, it's cool, but you kind of always want to do your own. And I'm always interested in probably learning more of the background rhythms of the solos that are on those records or the songs that I'm interested in, because that's the part I'm going to need to actually play my original solos over, is to know what the background parts are. But again, this thing is fantastic because you can just plug your guitar straight into this thing, your bass into it. You can even plug a microphone into it, if you just wanted to sing over stuff. And you can plug headphones directly into this, and that's it. I mean, this thing is fantastic. It even can be like a audio interface to your computer if you wanted to record into a DAW, or give yourself some different things to play around with. But man, I really, really recommend getting something like this. They used to have a lot of stuff on the market. They used to have a whole lot of stuff. Boss is a great brand. Any guitar players out there, you guys know Boss. Boss makes fantastic equipment. They make wonderful stomp boxes. They make really good tuners, and they make a lot of really cool recording gear. I still actually, I use a BR-864 still as one of my main focal points of my studio. This actually is kind of the mini version of that. But what's really cool about it is that it comes preloaded with tons of backing tracks already on this thing. So you can plug your guitar in, pick the backing track. It'll tell you what key to play in. Obviously, you have to be able to play your guitar a little bit and know what the key means. But that's kind of what we're here to kind of help you with and understand that. But the idea is just being able to play something into this thing and improvise and really get the sounds of the things that you want to be able to do to jam. It's a really helpful tool. Believe me, man, what you really want to do is you want to make as many mistakes as you possibly can when you're jamming over stuff, just to kind of hear why notes work and why they don't. Theory is a really good thing to know, but those rules can be bent actually quite a bit, and there's a lot of things that you can actually do to kind of, and really in bending the theory, you're kind of just borrowing from one key, one key signature to another and kind of superimposing your ideas on it. But still, again, this is just a great product all around. We're going to talk more about this later and all the stuff that it does. But let's get back and listen to another jam. In fact, this is one that you can get actually on that recorder. was really enjoying that one. I didn't want it to end. That's kind of the thing. That's the one nice thing about this guy is that it'll just keep playing and it'll keep looping that track over and over again. You can actually record yourself on it and actually put lots of drums and actually write your own little demo tracks and songs with it too. Man, I'm telling you, it's just one of the most fantastic practice tools. A lot of companies actually back in the day used to make tools like that. Obviously, with the advent of computers being kind of affordable for everybody, or at least from the studio standpoint of the DAWs will run on lower end computers. The need for that stuff is maybe not as important. But what's really nice is to have it already kind of set up for you so that you can just work on it. A lot of players when they first start off, they're not real good at writing the background parts, recording the background parts, and then soloing on top of it. This kind of allows you just to kind of solo straight away right on top of it. One of the things that I was kind of doing there with this particular thing, and you'll notice this is something, just a really basic concept that I use. And again, where I get this information from is from many, many sources. One of my favorite guitar players is a jazz guitar player by the name of Frank Gambale. Man, the guy is just a fantastic guitar player. Shout out to Frank Gambale. I love you, man. You're one of the best. But what's great about Frank, not only is he a fantastic player and a wonderful musician, he actually writes a lot of really cool instructional books. I'll have to bring them up later on when we do some more streams. I'll show them to you. I'll recommend some definitely instruction books to check out. But man, Frank really knows his stuff, and he really understands kind of how you can kind of break music down. When you're playing in a key, like in the jam that I just played here, and I'm going to kind of break this down a little bit before we go on to a new jam, because I'm going to play a little bit more on top of this one again. But what makes it cool is that when you think about the key that I'm in, which is in this case D major or B minor, B minor, I'm going to actually, when you play all the notes from D major, let me go ahead and put my clean back on there. So if I play all the notes from D major, which would be D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, or A, and then, B, or, C sharp, and then D again, thinking of the key there. But so, playing those particular jams, and I started on C there, let me start on D. So D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, and C sharp. That's why my brain was messed up. One of the reasons my brain is messed up anyway. Lots of rock and roll and loud guitars over the years definitely can give you some stuff going on with that. One of the things that I really like to play quite a bit is using all of those notes. So I'll play a line maybe like this. Actually, let me change the key back there. That's all 7 notes, and it kind of gives you that sound of the scale. One of the things that Frank Gambale's method kind of teaches you, which I think is fantastic, is that you really want to kind of take those 7 notes and remove a couple of them. So one of the more popular things to actually do would obviously use the pentatonic scales. So in this case, I'm going to use the B minor pentatonic scale. I use that B minor pentatonic scale because it removes the half steps. The half steps when you're soloing are kind of the touchy notes. You can pretty much guarantee, now this isn't always the truth, but most of the time it is, especially for rock stuff, that a note that sounds good over the jam, if you go a half step up in that key or below, depending on what the other note is, usually is not necessarily, and I hate to use the term sounds bad, because no notes sound bad. They're kind of like flavors, right? But by removing the half steps, it kind of eliminates some of the trouble that you'll have actually soloing. Listen to this. Let's take a listen to this and actually, hear how this actually works in process. So, okay. So basically what I'm going to do here is I'm going to play the notes of the scale, pentatonic scale, and just listen to how nice all these notes sound. Man, those notes sound really good when I solo over that. You really can't go wrong with those notes, as far as just the way that the tonality sounds. But why? So you might want to say, well, why don't I just stay with those notes? Well, actually, you can just stay with those notes and just, use your feeling, because that's, again, what most important. It's not about how fast you play. I'm a very fast player, but again, that's because I like to play fast. I'm a highly skilled guitar player, but still, when I listen to music, I don't just listen to music based off of how, fast the guitar player plays. That'd be kind of funny. When you go to buy music, they would rate it as how many songs are actually in the song, right? You don't buy it for that. You buy it because of the way it makes you feel, or you like it the way it makes you feel. So the pentatonic scale is a fantastic scale just to get that feel going and to get you kind of squared away with the way you want it to sound. Just from a feeling standpoint, not necessarily from a note standpoint. Always when I say it, the way you want it to sound again, everybody wants to sound good when they play, right? But don't be afraid to check out some of those other notes. Now, let's add the 2 notes in that I took out from that pentatonic scale. I'm going to go back to D major. We'll talk a little bit more about the specifics of the notes, but again, just kind of get the general idea of it. Let's listen to the major scale now that contains the 5 notes from B minor pentatonic plus the 2 notes that were half steps. Now, if we listen to it, see that note has kind of spicy, it's got kind of a. Maybe people will go, man, that note doesn't sound good. Well, it sounds the way it's supposed to sound over that jam. If you don't like that sound, that's totally cool. That's your choice to not like the way it sounds. And a lot of people say that's a wrong note, and that's their opinion. But the idea is that is kind of a flavor that's removed from that particular chord. Like if I go. Notice that has a little bit of a different flavor to it than the pentatonic scale. Now listen, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of go back and forth. So here's pentatonic. All right, now I'm going to play the major scale. Going back to pentatonic. See that note there? That's from the major scale, right? It's kind of an odd sound, or maybe just a little bit of a spicy sound, as we like to say. But again, just using those 2 concepts. Those are some really simple concepts that you can use when you solo, just to kind of break the sound up of what you're doing. There's a lot of, the chords really going to make a big difference too. I really like kind of soloing over those airy, kind of really cool chord changes because they give me that jam to it, right? As opposed to doing something that's just total shred, right? So let's do that right now. I want to kind of get my hands warmed up a little bit more, so we're going to just kind of launch into a shred one here. So let me get get that one rocking, and here we go. That was a good one. I love jamming that one. We'll probably do that one a couple of more times. That was just a lot of fun. That one actually, you can kind of hear a lot of the stuff that I'm doing on that one, kind of that same concept. But one of the things that I'm kind of doing on this one, which you can kind of follow along with, and there's a lot of different ways we can do this. We can superimpose chords, but the chord change basically over this one, even though there's like a little tagline that kind of, the chord change to that basically sounds like this. It goes. But the chords, although there's little taglines that go in there, there's really just 4 basic chords there. That's E, C, A, and B, right? So when I'm playing up here, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll actually do this same little thing. So I'm going to play an E minor. Now again, what chord should you play over this? Obviously, I'm thinking of this E, C, A, and B from the key of E minor. So the fact that I'm doing E minor and being able to play those particular things, I'm having being able to play E minor to C major, because I'm thinking it in the key of E minor or G major. So it would be E minor, C major, A minor, B minor, and then I switch to B major to kind of give it that E harmonic minor kind of feel, kind of moving that D to D sharp, right? What's the difference between E minor and E harmonic minor? Actually, it's a subtle note. This is E minor, natural minor. So it's E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D. E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D. But if I take that second to last note, that D, and move it up to D sharp, I get this. That really has got a cool sound to it. Kind of get that kind of like, you hear that actually quite a bit in a lot of metal stuff. There's a king. Let's see. I think Abigail goes that way, isn't it? Like, I remember it. That just has that E harmonic, and actually that's more E Phrygian dominant, I guess. So strike that. But you get the idea, right? So the idea of being able to play these different sounds on this really kind of extends it. Let's take a listen to me do that kind of solo idea again on top of this particular track. So there's my E, right? And then there's the C, there's the A, and then there's the B. So then I do the E. I go C, A, and then B. We'll let it go through one more time, then I'll kind of do the whole thing, just kind of in time. I'll do it twice just so you can kind of hear it. You heard me do it during the jam, but the same concept here. Simple concept. And you can really get a lot of mileage out of these little ideas, right? It's the idea of understanding the key change. One of the crazy things that you'll find when you start to solo is you actually don't have to play that fast. You can just play in time. Paul Gilbert, fantastic musician. He's got a lot of great instructional videos out there, and I think one of the points that he makes is the fact that, when you play in time, it sounds like 2 to 3 times faster than when you play out of time. And that's a really important part, playing in time. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't try to stretch and play on odd beats or play syncopated things. It's, again, you just want to kind of keep it structurally together. When you're jamming, obviously, man, go for it. It doesn't matter if you actually make mistakes or that you're out of time. That's all part of it. It's all part of having fun and actually playing the guitar. You don't want to get so locked in that everything has to be perfect, because then you'll take the humanness out of what it sounds like, and people can really hear that. Computer music, stuff that's been quantized, just to the point where there is just no speeding up or slowing down, it kind of robs music of the human feel. There's a lot of arguments, actually, that they think that one of the reasons that rock and roll isn't so rock and roll anymore is because of the quantizing of drums. When you record everything into a DAW and you quantize it to be perfectly in time, it seems that it kind of takes away that human element of, like, four people jamming in a room together, And there's a lot of great songs. Now, again, I don't know if I completely agree with that's the only reason. There's tons of reasons we can argue about what kind of style is popular and what isn't. But I think just from a basic standpoint, quantizing is useful. All these computer tools are very useful. It's just that I think it does kind of take away that human element. One of the last bands I was in, the drummer just was not that great at playing to a click track. And I can tell, because I play to a click track all the time. When we jammed, he would speed up and slow down from a tempo standpoint. But as a musician, I can follow that. I can hear him slow down, and I can start to slow down with him. I can hear him speed up, and I can start speeding up with him. And at first I thought, man, what are we doing here? But really, it kind of gives music a pulse. If you listen to popular music, I think, Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana is a good example of that. Fantastic tune. What a great rock and roll song that was by a fantastic band. I think when you think about, like, that song, it kind of doesn't start off at one tempo and end at one tempo. It kind of breathes. It kind of speeds up and slows down just a little bit throughout most of the song. So it gives that human quality, and it really, humans pick up on that. Humans pick up on other human things really well, if you're into computers, as we would figure most people are here, about the uncanny valley and the fact that the closer they make, computer like graphics to look more like people, the more it looks unreal, because there's always something kind of odd about it the closer it gets. Now, again, they'll probably end up beating that and being able to fool everybody, right, with a great deep fake. But until then, music is one of those things that you really just want to kind of have that style down with. Okay, let's do another jam. Let's take a listen to another one here. Let's mix it back up. Let's kind of put down we'll do kind of a more of a kind of a that's Really enjoying that one tonight too. That one just sounds really cool. It's got that really cool laid back sound. A lot of the little things that I'm playing, you know, just I'm playing a lot of basic ideas, just adding in rhythmic touches to them, right? And not everything that I play is perfect, but that's okay. That's all right. It's okay to not be perfect. Now, obviously, that's why we have recording machines, right? If you're in the studio and you're trying to get something down, you do it over and over and over and over again, and they take after take after take after take, and hopefully, um, it just kind of depends on what you're doing. If you're playing something that has to be played specifically that exact way, hopefully that you can do 1,000 takes and get it exactly right. The danger that comes in is that after you play something 1,000 times, a lot of that initial excitement and sound that you got when you initially played that jamming idea kind of fades away, and it just sounds, I don't want to say not human, it just starts to sound mechanical. And it just doesn't have that. I'm definitely have had that experience with myself of writing a guitar solo and then recording it and then just not being happy with one or two notes. And that's why a lot of times in the studio they just go in and punch out those couple of notes. Back when I was a kid and I was using an old Yamaha 4-track, there was no way to punch in and out because it used a cassette tape. Whenever you punched in to fix a mistake, when you stopped the recorder, there was a blank spot for about a half a second right after that. So you can always punch in, but you couldn't punch out. So if you punched in, you had to play to the end of the song no matter what part you were doing. So you couldn't just fix those two notes. Now they can go onto a computer and just isolate those two notes and have you just play the little bit around that and fix it, which is, again, the idea of the song. It's kind of like making a movie. I always kind of look at the difference between, live performance versus like an album or a song that you listen to, kind of like the difference between like watching a movie or watching a play. A movie, they can film the movie, they can take it and put it into special effects, they can, do everything they want to doctor it up to make it perfect. When you're doing stuff live in the theater, sometimes stuff happens, right? Sometimes the props fall over, sometimes somebody forgets a line, sometimes, things just don't always go well, but that's the excitement and the fun of the live theater, and also what makes, the movies so great. Same with music. When you're in the studio, you can make everything perfect and you can make everything exactly the way you want it to be. But one of the things that I enjoy most about music is actually jamming with other people, getting together with other people and actually kind of expressing ourselves in the room, because I'm really interested in new music that I've not heard before. If I just play something I've rehearsed all the time, the likelihood of me sounding or hearing something I've not heard before is really slim to none. I really enjoy improvising. In fact, as I sit here and improvise over these particular jams, I hear little bits and things like, oh, that was cool. Ooh, that was neat. Or I hear something and go, I wish I hadn't played that. Or that note doesn't fit exactly there. I'm actually trying new things to see if they work. One of the things that I kind of did on a jam earlier, which and I don't know if I did it on this one or the one earlier, I wanted to kind of point out, is that, I was using the pentatonic scale and kind of adding in that extra half step below it. So in this case, like E minor pentatonic. But so I'm playing like, D sharp or E flat, along with the E and the G. And that's a really cool sound. One of the places that you hear that, at least I hear it all the time, is because I'm a big Pantera fan. I was hearing Dimebag play that opening, kind of the opening lead fast part to the Cowboys from Hell solo. He starts off actually doing the exact same thing all the way across, which just will bring up another point that I like to make, is that this is a symmetrical scale. So he's actually going to play 11, 12, and 15 all the way across. So 11, 12, and 15. Again, a really cool idea. What does symmetrical scale really mean? It just means playing the same frets on every string all the way across. I'm the One by Van Halen, if you remember that one. It's got a little line in it that goes... That's a symmetrical scale. From a theory standpoint, you can probably, I can actually break that down and we can show you where all the notes go in that particular key and how they actually need to be played. But all of those little things that we're going to play are really just fast and sound goes, oh, there's my buddy Gibby. Say hey everybody, Gibby. He just wants to sit down there on the couch. All right, we'll let him make himself comfortable there. I'll keep an eye on him in case he doesn't, when he doesn't do anything we don't want to watch him to do. But he's my buddy. So how you doing, bud? So, but the idea here is one of the things that I kind of get the point across to a lot of my students is the symmetrical scale. That's not in a key. But Eddie Van Halen's doing that. I can't complain about Eddie Van Halen one bit. I mean, what a fantastic musician, what a fantastic guitar player. He's a fantastic piano player too. I'm sure he can pretty much do anything he wants to, musically. But nobody goes to Eddie and says, "Hey man, those notes you played were out of key." No one ever says that to him. Same with Dimebag Darrell from Pantera. Nobody goes, "Hey man, those notes aren't in key." And that's really important when you start learning theory, is to not be a slave to the key. Theory is merely a suggestion. That's all it is. I can explain to you the theory and why we say this is supposed to go there, but music is art. Music is art. I'm going to say that one more time. Music is art. Do what you want to. If you like the way it sounds, I guarantee somebody else is going to like the way it sounds. And if you're the only person that likes the way it sounds and you like it, hey, that's still art. You should do that, All it takes is for one person, and that could be you, to like what you do, and that's good enough. We spend too much time thinking about theory and the way notes fit into things. All of our music sounds either boring, or it sounds like it's just, either too perfect, too boring, or it just doesn't have any excitement, just from a newness standpoint. And I guess maybe that's kind of the boring aspect of it, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and take a listen to another jam. Let's set it up here and let's jam one.
Yeah.
Cool. That's another point there of being able to jam with your hearing, right? If you listen right there at the end, these jams run about 5 minutes, and I'm not really, every once in a while I look over kind of to see how close I am to the end, but I'm not really sure when it ends. So I have a lot of ideas maybe that I'm going to play. And if the song ends and the note that I'm playing on doesn't resolve, I can hear that with my hearing that it doesn't resolve, and then I can shift up or down to a resolved note. Now, in this case, we're ending on a D, so obviously the notes would be D, F sharp, and A, so I ended on a G, so when I heard the resolve, I shifted back to an F sharp just to kind of pick up that, resolved sound of the third. But one of the things that you're going to find when you solo is that the notes that you actually fit over the change, the ones that sound good. So for example, if you're playing over a D chord, let me get my singer. So if I play this regular D chord, that would be D, F sharp, and A. And so if I just play those notes on top of that, which would be this, and we'll go those notes actually sound perfect over that chord because those are the notes that are in that chord. But that's also like spray painting white spray paint on a white wall. It's not gonna really mess the wall up at all, but no one's gonna notice it either. So there's a fine line. You want to play notes that maybe aren't part of the chord. So in this case, maybe I'll play C sharp, because that's not part of the D chord, right? It would be part of D major 7, but it's not part of a regular D. So when I play that C sharp, we create some dissonance. Dissonance, or spice, as I like to say, creates a really cool feeling in the music. Now, obviously, if you just play dissonant stuff all the time, a lot of people may feel that to be annoying, right? Like if I'm just going... Okay, that kind of gets old, Kind of like the flat 5 in metal, But one of the cool things about those notes is that they kind of make the human ear want to hear it resolved. So when I do this, when I do that C sharp with the D, and then go to the D, oh, listen how pleasing that is. And so I can create kind of an interesting pattern with that. I can go like... And that kind of pushes the whatever I'm playing forward. It's just you wanting to hear it resolve, or you want to hear those particular notes that I'm playing go someplace else other than just getting stuck on the C sharp and the D. Man, there are so many wonderful things that you can get just from, there's only 12 notes, so obviously you're playing quite a bit with, how the resolve happens and what's going to do it. So let's go ahead and kind of think about that concept over another jam. Let's do another one. right, man, that was a great one. You know, when you think about playing, blues tracks are actually quite a lot of fun to play over because of the pentatonic, the pentatonic scale that we can actually play over those particular ones. One of the things that we want to actually do is be able to, I guess, I don't know. The pentatonic really, when you play it over blues, I'm more of a metal player, a rock player. So when I'm playing over blues, I'm going to use actually a lot of modal stuff as opposed to just playing over the blues. I think a lot of blues players, for the most part, stick mostly with the pentatonic scale or the blues scale because they're more concerned about the actual phrasing. And again, they're probably not going to be soloing for 5.5 minutes straight like I'm doing here just to kind of improvise and have a good time. There's probably going to be vocals involved and, maybe even trading solos between other people or members of the band. Again, everything's different and everybody that kind of, you're all going to have your own kind of style. But it's really just feeling out where you want to go. Same kind of concept with this one. When I'm using kind of those, the blue note in this case, in this one, right? The F sharp there. That note, that blue note, again, it's not it's what we call a passing tone. You don't really want to land on it, right? If we listen to, let me kind of bring that jam up again here. Okay, so if I just play that note. Yeah, boy, it's not really the nicest sounding note over that particular change. But it sounds really good, kind of bookend between the one right before it and the one right after. So if I play it and go, even bend to it. Again, that kind of passing tone concept. Let's get another jam going on here. Let's kind of go to a little more of a metal rock one so we can kind of have it, just jamming. Let's see what we got here. Let's do this. Let's try this one. that's a cool one too. I really enjoy playing over that one. Actually, there's not really a whole lot I don't enjoy playing over. I just really enjoy playing. In fact, the more that we go, the more it's just kind of fun to kind of get that sound and that jam. Let's do another one. Let's go with the talking. Let's just do another jam here. Let's find something cool we can do. really enjoyed playing over that one too. That one, if you took lessons from me way back in the day, that one came on a CD that I used to make for all my students. Of course, now I can't give them CDs anymore because nobody owns CD players. But that was definitely one that I gave to all my students to jam over. It's actually a pretty cool chord change, kind of metallic-y. It says that Metallica kind of, Sanitarium, Fade to Black, kind of, chord change that well, I guess, similar anyway. But again, that same concept of being able to solo over those, a lot of fun. I really enjoy playing over the slower expressive ones, especially, being able to kind of take breaks and pauses. But again, I do like to shred and I do like to play fast too. So it's kind of just a balance. Let's do another one. All right, that's a cool one too. You know, a lot of the things which you can't really see here on the floor, but I'm using a floor pedal. You can hear it though. You can hear me add in wah-wah pedal. Really only using 3 basic sounds right now. I actually got kind of some fun ones that we can kind of add in. Maybe I'll throw those in on the next couple of jams here just to try to get kind of a different sound. Kind of looking for the right track to kind of do that with. So let me take a look at the tracks here. Maybe we'll try that C major one. That was kind of cool. That one actually may kind of be kind of a neat sound to it, you know. The color of the sound is a big deal too. There's only 12 notes. So all the music that we listen to, whether it's from synths or from guitars or from pianos or flutes and saxophones or whatever, all of those instruments have their own color and timbre as far as like the sound goes. Obviously if you play a C, the note C on a grand piano versus playing the note C on like a ukulele, they sound different even though they are C, right? That's a big part of coloring with music, is using all of the sounds and the effects that you have available to actually do that, which kind of brings me back to this. That's why we were talking a little bit earlier about this Boss thing, the Boss Micro BR. One of the coolest things about this is that when you excuse me, when you actually play through and do the jams on this, when you select the background, it actually cues up a different lead sound for you each time. And so it kind of matches what it thinks the lead sound would fit with the background track there. And that's one of the greatest things about this, is you don't have to do really a whole lot of thinking. You can just do a whole lot of creating. And as a musician, that's a great tool of being able just to sit there and create music without having to think about all the patches and stuff. You look at the pedal board that I'm using and you start talking about, when you first get into this stuff, there's a lot of knobs and buttons and settings that nobody really knows exactly what they do just at first. Now, obviously, don't be afraid. Go in and, change all the knobs, do everything that you can just to hear what it does. But a lot of times you might be tired or you just don't have a whole lot of time to practice. That's, again, one of the great things about this thing. Let's talk about, just one of the sounds that I'm going to use here on this next one. Let's see if we can't work this in a bit. This is kind of an interesting sound. Listen to this one. Yeah, that's definitely a fun sound to kind of mess around with. Let's see if we can't fit that into a jam somehow. Let's try this one. And we'll start off with a clean, of jam on that one. That's okay. I like that sound. That actually is kind of an octave wah that I'm using. Actually kind of takes the note, whatever I'm playing, and starts to run up through all the notes, get up to that octave, so you can kind of, pressure it with the pedal to kind of get different sounds. Man, I really like that. That's a fun pedal. Now, again, that's one of the things, obviously with something like this, you're not going to have, there's no pedal on it. You can't step on it. I don't recommend stepping on it because you'll break it. But again, having a floor unit that has, some expression pedals, whether it's a pedal board or an actual multi-effects unit. I actually use a multi-effects unit. I use the Vox Valvetronics Tone Lab LE. It's actually, they don't make it anymore, which is a bummer because it's a fantastic product. Vox also makes very wonderful products, but what's great about this particular unit is it has an expression pedal on it that allows me to use the wah, that allows me to use volume, and it actually allows me to change some different things up, which we'll kind of listen to on another clean jam, which we'll do here in a second. But before we do that, let's do another jam. Let's take a listen to this one. This one's kind of a fun one. This is kind of more of just a bass background, and this is kind of allows you to kind of play a little different as well. So, one of the neat things about taking the chord change or the actual harmonies out, when you're playing a guitar solo, you're not just playing over one note, right? So, sometimes you are, but in this case, like for example, if I'm going to play over the note C, a lot of times C is grouped with other notes, whether that would be like a power chord like C and G. Maybe it's like C major, which would be C, G, and E. Maybe it's C, G, E, and B, or B to make C major 7. Right? When you play over the chords like that, there's a lot of color already there in that particular chord change. So when you're actually going to solo over this, you kind of just pick out those notes, right? So I might go... just to kind of get those particular sounds when I'm soloing. But if it's just a C, I as a soloist can kind of add in the rest of the notes, right? So when we're playing over just a bass guitar part that's just playing some basic bass pieces, man, let me tell you, there's a lot of cool, interesting things that we can do there. And we can kind of change it up a little bit. Let's take a listen to one of those. This is also kind of an E bass jam, but let's listen. Man, that's a really cool one. You can kind of hear what I did on that one too, because there weren't chords actually on that one. I actually threw some chord ideas kind of on top of that. Now they were basic, simple ideas, stuck mostly with minor. In fact, because I'm not, I don't really want to push that too far away from my initial idea of playing. And I still, even though I'm improvising over this, I'm still trying to come up with ideas. You probably listen when you hear me play. A lot of times I repeat a lot of ideas within the same jam because again, that's kind of the thing. I'm still trying to create melodies and I'm still trying to create something that's fun to listen to. Obviously, doesn't always turn out that way. Again, we see always want to say that's the fun of improvising is that when you're playing something brand new right then and there, it may crash and burn or it may totally take off and soar. But that's the fun, that's the excitement of it. I've read a lot of stories of Miles Davis, famous jazz trumpeter, that he was very coy about letting the other band members know what was going to happen when they went on stage because he wanted it kind of be a surprise to everybody. I think it was Mike Stern, the guitarist, another fantastic guitar player, Mike Stern, who jammed with Miles Davis, who I remember him. I remember reading a story that Miles would just scratch out a little bit of part of what Mike was supposed to play. He's like, okay, here's your part. He wouldn't let the rest of the band see the other band's parts, or he's just really. I don't want to say cagey or coy, but he really was after when they went on stage, he wanted to trust that they were great musicians and that after them hearing and, feeling what was going on, they were going to be able to contribute to something new. A lot of times guitar players, especially myself, we have little patterns we like to do and little things we like to stay with because they're comfortable. We've practiced them a million times. And that's always the thing when you're improvising is trying to break out of a lot of those patterns. It's okay to use them. Obviously, this is, I'm playing for a long time over static chord changes that don't move a long time. And so that's the fun of improvising, right? If you're writing a guitar solo for a song, you're probably, unless you're Satriani or Vai, and even in that case, you don't solo for the whole song. You usually play like melody pieces, right? There's like a melody part of the song. And I always try to do that too. I always try to start off with some sort of melodic, slower based thing that I repeat. I use octaves quite a bit, so example, and I'll show it to you over this G minor jam that I'll do here in just a second, this kind of G minor funk jam. But what I'm actually doing is like I'll repeat a pattern that would go like let me change my sound here. Like I'll do something that goes like, then I'll just move it up an octave, and then again doing it the same thing up another octave, right? Of course, that example is in A minor, but you get the idea. The idea also is kind of playing octaves of just even arpeggios or triads. I love to do that as well. I heard Steve Vai do that on a tune. I don't remember the name of the tune, but it was off of Sex and Religion when he had the Vai band with I think it was Devin Townsend. But when you think about like, there's a little thing he does in one of the solos that's kind of like this E major chord. He goes. And really, if you look at it, there's, if you simplify it just from the triad standpoint, it's the three notes of E major, right? B, G sharp, and E. I do the exact same thing an octave lower. And then again, one octave lower. And I like to do this in the other direction too. I like to do this forwards. I'll go. Right? And I do this. You hear me do this all the time. It's one of my favorite things to do. I just really like the way it sounds. Pay attention when I'm playing, and I'm sure even if you go back and watch what I've played today, I've done it a lot of times in there. And that's kind of the fun part of actually being an improver, How you doing there, Gibbs? You getting in the... Okay, he's comfortable. Just want to make sure. He puts up with a lot of noise around here. He's a good... He really hangs in there. What a trooper he is. I keep it down low enough, though, that doesn't really bother his hearing. And that would kind of bring up another point, too. Sometimes... when I was playing, you got to get your creativity with anything. And when I was playing earlier, I don't know, it was like 4 or 5 tracks earlier, I noticed that whatever notes I was playing was bothering his ears. He was just kind of shaking his ears a little bit. Now, it's not the volume. I don't have the volume up loud enough here in my studio to actually make it painful to him because he's my buddy. I never would want to hurt him. But I do notice that certain frequencies when I play kind of makes his ears shake. And a lot of times I'll actually just sit there and play and watch him while I'm playing to see what frequencies make his ears shake. What's the point of that? Well, the point is, if I can come up with a weird combination of notes that try to make his ears shake, hey man, maybe it's a weird combination of notes that I've not heard before or put together, or maybe it just gives me some sort of creative expression to be able to do that. I remember being in the studio one time and listening to the automatic sprinkler go off right outside the studio, and you can hear the kind of the sprinkler sound was like tick 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 tick, right? And so I picked up my guitar and I started going, just mimicking the rhythm of the sprinkler and then just changing the chords. Anything that leads to inspiration, anything that makes you be creative, you got to kind of think about it. I have a lot of friends that are musicians, obviously, because I've grown up as a musician, and that's primarily what I do. It's really fun to talk to musicians on what gets them inspired or what makes them want to create or play particular things. There's just a lot of things out there. Maybe you want to try to make something that sounds like, an inanimate object. That's always a crazy thing to do. Like take, for example, think to yourself, and these may be Steve Vai's ideas too, because, man, I've read so much stuff from so many places. In fact, I take really credit for none of the stuff that I'm playing other than my own technique of time I've spent playing. But that's kind of the fun thing about music, right? Is sharing it, spreading it, because, again, it's kind of like, music. Although the record labels and everybody, it's a competition because we're trying to sell albums, we're trying to be, the number one person and all that. But, music's about making a personal connection with somebody. If I play something that you like, or I play something that you're like, man, that really sounds awesome. That's awesome. Then I made a personal connection with you. Or if I'm playing something, you're like, man, I really feel what that guy's playing, or I feel how he feels. Man, again, that's the most important thing to me. It's just making that connection, from a human standpoint. But getting back to the Steve Vai thing, Steve Vai, I think, he had an idea about, and again, I could be wrong, but we'll credit to Steve Vai because, he's a genius anyway. I'm sure he came up with this at some point. Is trying to get, make what an inanimate object would sound like. For example, a Coke can. What would a Coke can sound like? Now, I don't mean how it would sound being crumbled or crushed or kicked or pennies thrown against it. I just mean, how could you play music that would describe the way that can sounds? Now, I'm going to tell you, you may think of, oh, well, the Coke can sounds like this, and you play it, and no one else knows it's a Coke can, but it gave you inspiration to come up with something and think in a way that you normally didn't. And these are all wonderful creative exercises, Being a musician or being a creative person is different than, people that aren't creative. We're not better, we just have a different way of thinking, right? We have to kind of tap into that. We all get tired from playing. We all play the same things over and over again. And sometimes, especially if you're not hearing new music because they're just not making the music in the style you enjoy a lot, or you're just not happy with the current bands that are around that make the music in the style that you like, what we play can get stale, or we can just kind of get old in what we're doing. So that's all right, All right, let's do another jam here. I'm about running out of time. Let's go ahead and do that E minor jam one more time, because I really enjoy playing over that one. That's a really fun one to kind of end off on, just kind of a shred one. Let's hit it. man, that was a great one. I want to thank everybody for joining me again this evening on Jam and Shred Dojo with Master Lee. I'm Christopher Lee Weiss, aka Master Lee, and I will see you guys all on the next one. Peace. Have a good one, everybody.